It wasn't the statement anyone expected. Honestly, when the news broke about Rob Reiner, the entire industry expected the usual curated, sterile press releases. You know, the kind publicists drafting paragraphs about thoughts and prayers and respecting privacy. But what happened yesterday with Sally Struthers wasn't PR. It wasn't a script. It was the kind of raw, unfiltered grief that makes you look away from the screen because it feels too intrusive to watch. We're talking about a woman who didn't just work with Rob. She practically grew up with him on the set of All in the Family. She was the Gloria to his meat for years. And that bond didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. But what Sally revealed, it changes everything we thought we knew about the last few months of Rob Reiner's life. And it aligns terrifyingly well with the information that has been quietly leaking out from Tom Cruise's camp over the last 48 hours. This isn't just about a tragedy. It is about a cover-up of abuse that went on for years right behind the gates of one of the most famous homes in Brentwood. You need to understand Sally Struthers has been silent for a reason. She was protecting Rob's dignity. But yesterday, she admitted that she couldn't protect it anymore because the truth about his son, Nick Reiner, needed to be told. When she spoke, her voice was shaking, not just with sadness, but with a visceral anger that we have never seen from her. She said, and I'm quoting her directly here, "We all saw the bruises on his soul, but we were too afraid to ask about the bruises on his arms." That is a sentence that should chill you to the bone. Sally talked about a lunch they had just 3 weeks ago. This is crucial because it was the last time she saw Rob alive. She described him not as the boisterous, opinionated director we all know, but as a man who was shrinking. She said he kept checking his phone every 2 minutes, flinching whenever it vibrated. When she asked him if everything was okay, Rob apparently looked at her with eyes that were completely drained of life and said, "I don't know how to stop him, S. I love him, but I'm terrified of him." At the time, Sally thought he was talking about a producer or a political rival. It wasn't until she got the call that Rob and Michelle were gone that she realized he was talking about his own son. And this is where Tom Cruise enters the picture. And I know that sounds unexpected, but stick with me because this connects the dots in a way that the mainstream news isn't reporting yet. Cruise and Reiner go way back. A Few Good Men was a defining moment for both of them. They stayed close. Cruise is known for being intense, observant, and frankly a guy who doesn't miss a beat. According to sources extremely close to the investigation who have spoken under the condition of anonymity, Cruise had actually staged an intervention of sorts back in November. The reports coming out now suggest that Tom had visited the Reiner residence to discuss a potential project, but the meeting turned into a confrontation, not with Rob, but with Nick. Cruise allegedly walked into a situation where Nick was screaming at Michelle, demanding access to a trust fund that had been locked due to his ongoing substance issues. We're hearing that Cruise, who is obviously not someone to be trifled with, physically stepped between Nick and his mother. The leaked details of this encounter are disturbing. Cruise reportedly told a close associate that the look in Nick's eyes was vacant and dangerous. Tom allegedly pulled Rob aside that day and told him explicitly, "You are not safe in this house. You need to get him out, or you need to get out." Think about that. One of the most powerful men in Hollywood, a man who has seen everything, was so rattled by what he saw in Nick Reiner's behavior that he advised Rob to flee his own home. And Rob, heartbreakingly, Rob did what so many parents do. He defended his child. He told Tom he's sick. We can't abandon him. He just needs one more chance. Sally's brothers confirmed this dynamic yesterday. She broke down when she admitted that Rob's capacity for forgiveness was ultimately his fatal flaw. She spoke about the guilt she feels for not pushing harder. She mentioned that Rob had started canceling plans, isolating himself from his old friends. The cast of All in the Family, the few that are left, tried to organize a reunion dinner recently. Rob declined. Sally said she drove by the house a week ago just to check and saw all the blinds drawn in the middle of the day. It looked like a fortress. She texted him, "I'm outside." And he replied hours later, "Not a good time." He's home. He's home. 2 words that carry so much weight now. What's truly shocking about Sally's revelation is the financial aspect she touched upon. We always assume these families have endless resources, that money isn't an issue, but addiction burns through fortunes, and apparently Nick's demands had escalated to a point of insanity. Sally revealed that Rob was quietly liquidating assets, not for new movies, but to pay off debts that Nick had accrued. We're talking about gambling debts, dealers, the kind of people you do not want showing up at your door in Brentwood. Rob was trying to buy his son's safety, trying to keep the wolves away, not realizing the wolf was already inside the house. There is a specific incident Sally recounted that the police are now looking into as a precursor to the murder. About 6 months ago, during a family gathering, there was an accident where Rob supposedly fell down the stairs. At the time, the official story was that he slipped. He broke his wrist and had heavy bruising on his face. Sally went to visit him at the hospital. She said, "Yesterday, I looked at his face and the bruising wasn't from a fall. It was shaped like a hand." She asked him then, "Did Nick do this?" And Rob looked away. He just looked away and started crying. They never spoke of it again. The silence of victims, especially parents abused by their children, is a deafening thing. It's wrapped in shame. How do you tell the world that the baby you held, the boy you raised, is the one beating you? Tom Cruise's perspective on this adds another layer of tragedy. Sources say Tom is devastated because he had actually offered to pay for a specialized high-security rehabilitation facility for Nick, one of those places in Switzerland that deals with the most severe cases. He put the offer on the table. "I'll handle it," he told Rob. "Let me take the burden off you." But Nick refused to go, and Rob refused to force him. Cruise apparently told friends, "I watched a slow-motion car crash for 2 years and couldn't stop it." The narrative that is being spun by Nick's defense team, even this early, is going to be about mental health and a snap in reality. But Sally Struthers isn't buying it, and neither should we. She was adamant yesterday that this was calculated. She talked about the manipulation. She said Nick knew exactly which buttons to push. He would be sweet, lucid, and apologetic. The son Rob remembered just long enough to get the check signed or the door unlocked. Then the mask would slip. It was psychological torture. Rob and Michelle were living in a domestic war zone. We also have to talk about the silence of the other friends. Why is it only Sally and leaked reports from Cruise coming out now? It's because Hollywood protects its own, but it also fears scandal.